But you're saying that Manny Diaz walking away and taking another head coaching job isn't such a yes, it's bad in the sense of, well, you lose the architect of this defense, but uh, it's not exactly completely difficult that they wouldn't be able to replace it and keep that standard, keep that bar pretty high.
I don't think so because Penn State will pay for what they need. It has tradition. It's a
Mhm.
place where it's not as difficult to get coaches to go because it's not an expensive place to live. I think you can have a family there. It's a little bit easier. Like LA has a harder time getting coaches to want to go out there. It's a crazy place. So USC,
Yep.
UCLA, a little different. I think it's an attractive place too. Just again, you're going to walk in and have top 20 talent at pretty much every position.
Yep.
If that's not attractive to a defensive coach, do you want him at Penn State? I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't. So that's how I look at it. And I'm biased because I kind of grew up watching Penn State, being a Midwest guy, but I just don't think it'll be that difficult. I really don't.
What about the Florida aspect of it? And that's the final thought here. Manny Diaz being a Florida guy, coaching at Miami of Florida, I feel like him and J1 Sider can team up and just in general, aside from positional recruiting, but the regional recruiting. I if J1 Sider's still there, but Manny Diaz is hypothetically not, I feel like the Florida recruiting doesn't take that much of the Southeastern recruiting doesn't really take that much of a hit.
Probably not. He's the guy that can tag team with that, but he didn't do a very good job when he was at Miami recruiting. He did not.
Interesting. That is it. That is so interesting.
No, I mean, I have bad stories. So um, it's one of the reasons he got run out of Dodge.
Mm.
So again, maybe he's changed, but that was not his forte. And I'm being kind when he was at the University of Miami.
Where do you expect to see him land? Is it and so much can change. We're having this conversation on Wednesday, November 29th, just for everybody to know, depending on when you're watching or listening to this back. Brian, do you think Duke is a good fit for him? Do you think he's in line for a Big Ten school will give him an opportunity, an SEC school? Because I thought Mississippi State would be calling him since he coached there not once but twice. Where do you think it's appropriate from two perspectives? What is your opinion of Manny Diaz as a head coach? And what is the football world's opinion of Manny Diaz as a head coach? How do they view him? Do they see him as an SEC or a Big Ten head coach?
In Florida, he's not viewed as a head coach at all.
Okay.
I'm just being honest. Like that's a hell no. So how ADs look at it and agents trying to manipulate, and then you just look at it. Look, fans assume often and with failure that ADs, the boosters, the board of regents at school X, whatever one it is, they're trying
Sure.
to win. The answer is not really. There are only about 18 to 22 schools that can really win. Penn State's one of them. Duke is not.
Mm.
Okay, what they've done, going 6-6 at Duke is not easy. Elko is a better coach than Manny as a head coach. I think he already proved that. They might take Manny because they're not going to spend a ton, but like if he was hired at Mississippi State, there would be pitchforks. They have completely unrealistic expectations in Mississippi State. They have
Yep.
no chance in that league. None. But their fan base thinks they do, and that's arguably as bad an AD job as there is in the country because the fan base and reality have nothing in common. But there's only a few jobs in the Power Five I could see, like Vanderbilt, Duke, etc. Manny's a smart guy. I think he'd be better in something like the MAC. I really do. But maybe the
Wow.
Sun Belt. He was a disaster at Miami. So I just don't think he's a Power Five coach as a head man.
Wow. That is those are some serious words about Manny Diaz because I see it just because he recreated the Penn State because he took a Penn State run defense that was not good. It was mediocre in 2022 to now being a top 3 rush defense. With the pieces that he had in play, he made all the players around him better, I feel like, but maybe that's because you're a good head coach for the defense, maybe not a program leader, but I see it differently. But you had a firsthand experience being down in Florida, knowing what goes on at all those universities, particularly the Hurricanes. And so I'll I'll take your word. I don't think that you're being dishonest here, Brian. I don't think you're lying to me.
No, he didn't run it well enough in the recruiting area more than anything else. And he wasn't the only one. Miami had a few coaches like that.
Yep.
And they were having kids walk out of their own backyard. They barely recruited that were top 200 kids. It was just insane. And he was one of them. So when he got fired, they had just gotten a commitment from now linebacker at Miami, Wesley Besaint. He was the only kid in that recruiting class from South Florida. And he had just committed, and like a week later, Manny got fired. For months, they didn't have a South Florida kid committed, and he's at the University of Miami. I'm sorry, that's not a head coach material, in my opinion.
Wow. So maybe that's good news for Penn State that they'll be able to keep Manny Diaz around for 2, 3, 4 years, because what we one man's trash, and I'm not trying to say that Manny Diaz, I'm saying the phrase, but Manny Diaz is certainly not trash, but you can understand that Penn State, if they value him as the defensive coordinator and can keep him around, that is good in the case.
Oh, yeah. He's a great coordinator. He's a great coordinator. That's not even debatable. I mean, they've hit the home run this year. But, being a head coach is hard, man. There's only a handful that don't get fired in the first 3 to 4 years, wherever they're at. It's hard.